Expelled South Africa's ambassador to the US, that's Ebrahim Rasool, will head to Pretoria today to hand over his report to President Cyril Ramaphosa. Rasool, you might remember, was expelled from the US after remarks he made at a webinar where he's linked US President Donald Trump to white supremacy. Rasool received a hero's welcome from members of the ANC in the Western Cape and their alliance partners when he arrived at Cape Town International Airport. Let's get you a better sense of what we should make of this. Bring in our guest, a research fellow for African diplomacy and leadership at the University of Johannesburg. That's Dr. Oscar van Heerden, who's with us now via our video link. Doc, great to have you on the program. Thanks very much indeed for making time to help us give your take on the issue. So when Ebrahim Rasool arrived in South Africa, he said essentially he's got no regrets. As that happened, Donald Trump doubled down on his misinformed views about what's taking place in the country. All of this against the backdrop of our president asking for there to be essentially for not inflaming the situation. But from where I stand, it feels as though we couldn't be further apart when it comes to this relationship between South Africa and the US.
No, absolutely, Ayanda. You're hitting the nail on the head. The truth of the matter is that when we cut through all of this, the USA, the Trump administration wants South Africa to compromise on its values and its principles. And this is a very, very difficult thing to do. Values that we talk about in South Africa is about Ubuntu, it's about solidarity, it's about human rights, and of course about Africa and the African agenda. And this goes completely contrary. In other words, our values are in keeping with what the United States would call diversity, equity, and inclusion. This is what the history that South Africa comes from in terms of our racist apartheid past, in terms of redress to the majority black South Africans. And this, unfortunately, South Africa cannot compromise on. And this is what the United States expect us to do when they ask us things like, naming certain streets, when they tell us that we can't have relations and solidarity with certain peoples, and so on and so forth. So a very, very tenuous, very acrimonious relationship at this point, the first time in a very, very long time.
Yeah. And, there's been so much said about what's at the heart of this, and I wonder what your take is on this, Dr. van Heerden. What do you actually reckon Washington wants? And I asked that question knowing it could be a very complex one, even though it seems simple on the surface. But for people who reckon South Africa should be going out on a limb to fix this, at what cost do you reckon it would come?
Well, this is a very interesting question, Ayanda, because when you listen to people like Joel Palok, for example, who might be the next United States ambassador to South Africa, when you talk of certain pundits in America, in Congress, and of course, unfortunately, here at home, domestically, people say that, we just need to change our behavior as South Africa. And what that means is, one, we must drop the case, the ICJ case against Israel. Two, we must not name certain streets after certain people. Three, we must not have good relations with Iran and China and Russia. And so on and so forth. And of course, we need to also change certain of our domestic laws, in particular this obsession with our expropriation, without compensation law at the moment. And so, this is what they call change of behavior. Now, you are right, Ayanda, in saying that it is much more complex than that, because if South Africa should acquiesce to those demands, we're basically selling our sovereignty to the highest bidder. This is the crux of it. It is about our values and principles as well as our sovereignty. If a foreign government, even if it is a big bully such as the United States, such as Donald Trump, if they tell us what we can and cannot do with regards to our foreign policy, with regards to our foreign relations, then there is a serious, serious problem. And so I don't see how we are going to be able to find each other as President Ramaphosa is alluding to. It's going to be a very, very difficult sell because you're dealing with an administration that is not prepared to listen. They're not prepared to meet with our elected government. Instead, they meet with conservative right-wing elements. They meet with the main opposition. In a way, they are meeting and prefer to meet with white South Africans, but they are not prepared to meet with the democratically elected black majority government. So it is an acrimonious situation, and I don't see us resolving it anytime soon, not
Right.
with Trump.
Sure. Which leads into my next question about what we do then for the next 4 years. I don't imagine the solution is rolling over and taking the punches.
No, absolutely. And you know, I know people don't want to hear this, Ayanda, but the truth of the matter is we are not left with any choice. When you weaponize trade by threatening people with tariffs, threatening people with 110, 120% tariffs and so forth, you've effectively weaponized trade. And what that then means is South Africa will have to seek alternatives to that trade. We need to look at other markets. We are forced to, if you want to weaponize it. Secondly, if you weaponize the dollar, as America has done, then you have to also seek alternatives. We didn't say we want to do this, but unfortunately we have to, because the dollar is being weaponized by the... and of course, also if you want to weaponize, for example, diplomacy, by saying it's our way or the highway, which is what has happened to Ambassador Rasool. You can't speak your mind, you can't give critical analysis, you can't give an impression of how you understand this beast called the Trump administration. For that, you get expelled. And so I think that America has created the situation where we, unfortunately, because these things are being weaponized, will have to seek alternatives in all respects.
That's fascinating because there's also been really interesting insights about how perhaps, as some people put it, this may be the beginning of the end of America as a global superpower. Outside of, of course, the sheer influence they have through the economy, the dollar, et cetera, there's a concept called soft power, which in some ways is rooted in diplomacy. And I wonder where you reckon the Trump administration's soft power is headed, given the events, frankly, of the past 3 months. It's extraordinary. Trump hasn't been in office for 4 months yet, let alone what we imagine might happen over the next 4 years.
No, absolutely. And you know, if you only look domestically, Ayanda, the Trump administration is saying to its own citizens, to its own intelligentsia, we don't think that you are educating our children correctly. We are going to set up alternative universities, Academy of America, because we feel that you are giving them wokeness, you are giving them liberal education, and so on and so forth. What that implies is that if they can do that to their own citizens, they are going to start saying to the world as well, you must think in a particular way, you must speak in a particular way, and you must do things in a particular way. So the Trump administration, with its ultra right-wing nationalist ideology, is unfortunately not going to be good for the world, as it is not going to be good for Americans themselves. We see the increase in protests, we see the increase of dissent, the protest against Elon Musk and Tesla, but also against Trump, and so on and so forth. So it's something. And just to come to your question, Ayanda, when you have an empire, and we know the factors that influence the waning of an empire, they are stretched too thin, they have become global, more than 750 to 800 military bases all over the world, aid and charity to the tunes of billions, interventions, military interventions, and so forth all over the world. They simply cannot afford it any longer. And so what Trump is trying to do, and if we give him the benefit of the doubt, he has to do these things if he wants to ensure that the empire survive at least for another decade or two. And so he has reined in all this money. He has taken it back to the coffers in order to make America great again. The problem with it is that in doing so, you are accelerating the demise of the empire. The rise of China, of India, is simply unstoppable. And the sooner the Trump administration realizes this, the better.
Against that backdrop then, is it worth South Africa going through the angst, for lack of a better term, of trying to find a suitable replacement to Ebrahim Rasool?
Well, I want to agree with certain analysts and people that says there's no need to rush. The kitchen is extremely hot. They don't want to listen to us at the moment. They've got a serious attitude towards us. And so to try and meet the measure of the Musk, Rubio, Trump coterie in terms of sending someone to Washington, it's just going to be met with more Facebooks and LinkedIn and statements and so on and so forth. So I think it is going to be very difficult to find a person. We can talk of experience, we can talk of a career diplomat, and all of these things. But the truth of the matter is, if Trump and his ilk don't like the person, that person will be home sooner than you say cat in the hat.
Sure. Sobering indeed. Dr. Oscar van Heerden, thanks for your take. Appreciate your time and your insights. Dr. van Heerden, of course, is a research fellow for African diplomacy and leadership with University of Johannesburg. Once again, thanks very much indeed.